I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Lincoln Lancaster County Planning Commission of June 8th, 2016. A printed agenda is available outside the hearing room, and a copy of the full agenda, including staff reports, is available in the front, at the front of the chambers with the clerk. The Open Meetings Act is posted just inside the doors at the back of the room. If you parked in the parking garage across the street to the north, the gate is open and no coupons are necessary. Out of courtesy for those attending this meeting, the commissioners and the staff, cellular phone usage is not permitted in these chambers during any portion of this meeting. We appreciate your cooperation. The Planning Commission action on all items on today's agenda is a recommendation to the City Council. The first item of business is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held May 25th, 2016. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Second. Shearer.
Harris and Shearer. Please call the vote, Jerry.
Okay. My pencil's not working. Sorry. Core,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Sunderman,
Abstain.
Weber,
Yes.
Shearer,
Yes.
and Hove.
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0.
Is your pencil working okay?
Go ahead. I've got a pen.
Okay. We do not have a
I don't know
consent
what's
agenda
going on.
today, and there are no requests for deferrals, so we will now proceed to public hearings. The staff will make a brief presentation. The applicant will then be requested to present his or her testimony, followed by those who wish to testify in support, followed by those who wish to testify in opposition. The staff will then be given an opportunity to respond to the testimony, and then the applicant shall have an opportunity for a rebuttal. Each person testifying should state their name and address and shall have 5 minutes to speak unless additional time is requested and granted. The timer will go off after 4 minutes, then you will have 1 minute to wrap up your testimony. The Planning Commission will vote immediately at the close of the public hearing unless the commission votes to defer action or continue the public hearing. Jerry, please call the first public hearing item.
Okay, we have 3 associated items under continued public hearing and administrative action. Item 5.1A is annexation number 16006 to annex approximately 7.88 acres more or less on property generally located at 7601 Pine Lake Road. Item 5.1B is change of zone number 16014 from AGR Agricultural Residential District to R3 Residential District for a residential healthcare facility on property generally located at 7601 Pine Lake Road. And item 5.1C is special permit number 16018 to allow a residential healthcare facility on property generally located at 7601 Pine Lake Road. Staff recommendation for annexation and change of zone is for approval, and for the special permit, staff recommendation is conditional approval. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on these applications?
I see none. Brian?
Good afternoon, Brian Will, Planning Department. Just for reference, because this is actually a little bit out of the way, but the property that we're talking about is the shaded area here. This is the old Pine Lake road alignment that was course cut by Highway 2. Pine Lake Road now intersects just off your map up here, so coming up the hill, if you were to go straight, that takes you down here to the driveway into one of the existing dwellings. So it is actually 2 lots. One of the lots currently has a single-family dwelling on it. The other is undeveloped, has been undeveloped since the time the lot was created. As was noted, there are 3 applications here. Let me just briefly touch on each one and talk about why staff is recommending the way that we are. So this is sort of a zoomed out a little bit from the area that we're talking about, which is the crosshatch shaded area here. So with respect to annexation, of course, I mentioned the annexation policy in the staff report, and we find that generally speaking, this area is urban in character. That is, one of the lots has a dwelling on it, adjacent to a highway, surrounded by other single-family dwellings, and adjacent to what was a paved arterial street, but will soon be improved again. We find this area to be urban in character. as well. The infrastructure is in place to serve it. Those utilities are adjacent or nearby in Highway 2. Would be served by Lincoln Fire Rescue and Lincoln Police Department. And so given that, we find that it meets the policy for annexation and are therefore recommending that the property be annexed. With respect to the change of zone, so one of the things that we first look at, and this is an excerpt of, a snapshot of the zoning map of a larger area. So this is Highway 2 running through. This is the Home Depot here. This is the subject property right here. The requested change of zone is to R3, and so why R3? Why is R3 appropriate? Well, as we look at, as the city's growing to the south, to the southeast, these sort of shows up pink here. These pink areas here and then here, where we're finding or where the residential development is occurring. Generally speaking, that suburban residential development is in R3 zoned areas. And so as we looked at this area, granted, we understand that currently there are acreages throughout, but as we've seen over time, as the city expands and moves into and runs into these acreage areas, we find that redevelopment tends to occur. And actually, Grand Terrace at the corner of 84th and Highway 2 is an example of that. It is zoned R3, and actually one of those acreage lots out there has actually more than one, have joined that community unit plan and have redeveloped. And so R3 zoning we think is appropriate as additional properties in the future redevelop. We suggest that they be R3 as well. It also suits the applicant's needs with respect to their development proposal. So we're recommending approval of the change of zone to R3 as well. The last item then is the special permit for the community unit plan. And I mean, I can tell you that over time, over the years, there have been many development proposals for this tract that historically been called the Porchy Tract, named after the longtime owners of the property. We've had numerous development proposals for developing the site. And I mentioned in the report the most recent ones was change of zone to H3, and a special permit for a campground. And staff was not supportive of that. I think going back to this is kind of a snapshot then from the future land use plan, and again, I've shaded the area. We find that residential uses are what are shown and recommended here. And that's pretty much what we've been consistently recommending over time. And so that was the rationale for not supporting those earlier requests. There's development constraints. There's no access to Highway 2, or there would not be any access to Highway 2 with rezoning. And so we consistently been suggesting redevelopment, residential land uses, and that could be single family, townhomes, apartments, or what you have before you today in this residential healthcare facility, which has a mix of care options, assisted, independent, and memory care. And so, like I said, as we see this area continuing to redevelop in the future, I think we're going to continue to recommend residential land uses, and we find this one to be consistent with that. There's only a couple conditions of approval with this. Really amounts to screening, and but however, with that, staff is recommending approval. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Brian, access will be off of Pine Lake, is that right?
Yes, correct. What will happen is this old stub of Pine Lake Road, it's gonna have to be renamed. It's no longer, we're not gonna call it Old Pine Lake Road. We'll have to rename that. And then it's gonna be improved, so yes, off Pine Lake Road and then to the site here.
Thanks. Other questions? Thank you. Applicant?
Good afternoon, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Peter Cav, the Baylor Evans Law Firm. I'm representing the property owner development. The listing shows Highway 2 Development LLC, which is an entity created by Monty Freilich. He uses an entity for developments that he does. I'm going to turn over the specifics of the presentation to you, to Schemmer & Associates, to give you the full details. They're the ones that put it together and I think have a very nice product. I wanted to let you know that as a part of developing this project, we were able to acquire, my client had owned the triangle, the Porchy Triangle, for a long time. We were able to finally acquire the adjoining parcel, which allowed a different access point to accommodate the city's concerns about access off of Highway 2. And as this plan came together, we met 3 different times with the adjoining neighbors and involved them and reconfigured, reset the plans a couple times to accommodate their input in this design, and Schemmer was accomplished that. I can answer any other general type questions or specific questions that you have, but I think I'll let Schemmer present the specifics of the project.
Any questions for Peter? Thanks.
Good afternoon. I'm Shane Larson. I'm the architect on the project with Schemmer & Associates. And as Peter mentioned, we met a couple times with the neighbors to give them the initial concepts for the building in terms of the layout, the placement on the property, just to get their buy-in and so that they could have an opportunity to contribute to the design as well. I'm just going to quickly pass through part of the images that I brought today so you get an idea of what the general appearance of the building would be and some of the leading factors that we used as part of the design. So as you can see from this image, we wanted the building itself to generally appear to be residential in nature, and we wanted to minimize the height. We wanted to minimize the volume so that from a distance it may appear as just simply a large residential home or complex. We also used a couple of different architectural features to articulate the roof so that you wouldn't have a very tall peak. And so as you can see, there's the double peaks that is apparent from this view, which also gives us the opportunity to shield some rooftop equipment. So we're trying to utilize a lot of components within the design to serve not only a functional purpose, but also aesthetics as well. In terms of the materials, we're looking at lap siding, some stone, once again resorting back to that residential feel, utilizing natural colors. We're not trying to make a bold statement here. And I'm just going to continue to pass through here. And as it was introduced, there's multiple levels of care: independent, assisted, and memory care. So as you can imagine, from one of the challenges that we wanted to answer was, with that levels of care, we wanted still to have that residential feel, which I think has been successful just by separating those different care levels into separate portions of the building, so you can kind of see how they all react to that, minimizing a large impact there. The windows and fenestration of the building, very similar, once again, to a residential feel. And we positioned the building on the property as close to Highway 2 as we could, once again respecting the neighbors to the south and to the west. So it would not only provide a visual screen for those residents towards Highway 2, but also provide some sort of a sound barrier. In addition to that, we also wanted to locate the access point for some of the services for the staff and deliveries between the new building and Highway 2, once again to minimize disruption for those other homes and families to the south and to the west. This is, once again, some of those comments that we had with the neighbors. So we adjusted some of the placement of the building. Also, in that location, the grading is depressed a little bit, so it also reduces the height of the building as well. So all those factors really played a part in where we placed the building, the general makeup of the building. As you enter the building as a resident or staff or family member, we created a focal point, which you see on this view, just a single-story community building. And that really is bookended by the different levels of care. And that's what it's the general design intent. And Matt Hubel with our office will talk to you a little bit more about some of the other site options.
Good afternoon. My name is Matt Hubel, civil engineer with Schemmer. And what you see on the screen now is the site plan that was submitted with the application. Generally, we are, as Peter mentioned, will be redeveloping what is currently called Old Pine Lake Road, name to be determined, with 2 entrances into the site. The one pointing to the south will generally be the main entry to the parking areas. The one pointing to the southeast will access some covered parking along the back of the building as well as the service area. We have provided extensive landscaping screening between the building itself and the existing residential lots to the west and the south. And per the staff report, we understand that planning would like to see some further screening, and we'll work with them throughout the design process to satisfy those requirements. From here, you can see kind of the 3 wings of care, with the center large square where it says proposed building is kind of the community area. Then jetting out from there are the 3 assisted independent living and memory care suites. To provide fire access, we are proposing a grass pave. That's kind of the cross-hatched area along the north and the east, which would be green. It would still provide what looks like a grassed lawn area, but would provide a solid surface for fire access. Maintaining, again, more of a residential feel, so we don't have a site covered in concrete. Other than that, I think you're pretty familiar with this plan, but if there's any other questions that myself or Shane or Peter can answer, we'd be happy to do so.
Is there any plan for not in this picture, but there's a triangle kind of up above that. That gives you the access, but then do you know of any plan for that land between Pine Lake and Nebraska Highway 2 and Old Pine Lake?
I think Peter might be.
That property north of the Old Pine Lake Road, I don't know what we'll call it, probably Pemberley Place will probably be the name of the stub. That's owned by another owner, and I'm not aware of any plans for that at this point in time.
Oh, okay.
It's not owned by my client.
It's not that, okay, sorry.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions, Maya?
I don't know who would be best to answer this, but you mentioned something about service, access for services between Highway 2 and the building. Could you point to where that is and what type of services we're talking about?
I can probably speak.
Can you get that? Can you see this?
Yeah, we can see.
Oh,
Is there
okay.
a way to
And if you can
point to
on the-
where
I didn't know how to point, I was gonna put it
Oh,
on
here,
the
okay, we'll use here's the cursor. So
Okay, there you go.
this surface, I call it a service access, which is the road that Matt referred to as going southeast. So that would give access to not only staff service, but there's also some covered parking on that side. So as we said, it's screened from Highway 2, which would be on this location here as well.
So it's a screen parking lot,
Well,
basically, or is it?
when I say screen, the building itself provides screening from, those trash equipment or whatever might be coming in and out of there, along with maybe some staff. So the building provides screening for some of those activities from the adjacent property owners. That's
Okay.
what I was referring to.
Okay, got it.
Can you show me where can't remember exactly what you called it, like where the grass part of the driveway is going to be versus, I can
Sure.
see like there's two different types of shading there, but I'm not
So-
really sure what they mean.
Right, so if there was a fire truck, they could enter into this drive here and then continue on to this hatched portion here and have access all the way around the building and then loop back in. So that's what Matt was referring to as that, the grass pavement portions.
And so that's this, yeah, that's
Yeah.
the grass portion
Yeah,
there.
that-
Okay,
I mean, there'd obviously be grass all around the building in addition, but that area in particular would have, increased compaction so that it could at least support those heavier equipments.
Anything else? Thank you.
Chris, do we need an address for the architects?
Oh, yeah, could we get your address?
You want me just to say it or leave?
Yeah,
Sure.
just go ahead and say it.
You want to use? Okay. 1044 North 115th Street, Suite 300, Omaha, Nebraska 68154.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Is there anyone here wishing to testify in support of this item? Is there anyone here wishing to testify in opposition to this item? Does anyone have questions for staff?
yeah,
Okay.
I'm not sure who to ask. The applicant might be better. That old Pine Lake Road, is that gonna be a public or private street now?
It's gonna be public street.
Okay.
Yep.
Have we heard anything from NRD about the increased runoff?
No, Public Works has looked at the grading and drainage, and what I think their plan is taking that off-site into ditch along Highway 2. There is a detention pond onto the northwest there. You can see it back behind Home Depot. Yeah, so that's,
Okay, thank you.
Do you know of any plans for that other piece, that piece north of?
nothing has been submitted to the planning department. Of course, it's given the development here and the improvement of the roadway, I expect there's probably going to be some discussion moving forward, but at this point in time, nothing that I can share with anybody.
Okay.
A little confused which section you mean by that, Chris. Do you mean like this right
essentially-
here?
I think it's this.
There's two triangles, yeah, it's that second triangle.
Okay.
The top, above Pine Lake Road, or
So-
Old Pine Lake.
Mainly for my own education, I guess, was that a voluntary annexation on that other property? Is the landowner on something like that given an opportunity to join in or not join in, or how does that work?
which-
On the annexation on that other property?
You talking about this lot here,
No,
No,
the one north of Old Pine Lake.
north of?
The one that's not being part of the special permit, but it is being annexed.
Correct. No, that is, they didn't ask to join, didn't ask to be annexed. However, as we looked at it in connection with this request, it was fully surrounded. And so, in our view, it, met the requirements. But we haven't heard any, they haven't contacted, hasn't been any opposition at this point in time.
Brian, so the properties to the south and west are part of the city as well?
No, what's inside the city really is what shows up as being dark here, okay?
Uh-huh.
And so all of this is currently outside the city, okay?
I guess I don't understand how it's completely surrounded when,
Well,
to me, it looks
okay.
like south, it's.
Okay, 3/4,
Okay.
8/10, 7/10, something like that. Pretty much surrounded,
All right.
so.
And then the other side of it is they've had an opportunity to speak on this issue as well. They know what's happening. If they had an issue, they would be here themselves.
Correct. Well, and let me actually rephrase. When I say surrounded, I mean the old Pine Lake Road right-of-way is coming in as well. So
Oh,
that's
that's where it's
actually
at.
fully surrounded.
Okay.
Correct.
okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Brian? Thank you.
Okay.
Applicant, any rebuttal, anything you'd like to add? Okay. Jerry, you want to call
I'll
these
call these
separately?
separately, yes. Okay, calling the vote for annexation number 16006 to annex approximately 7.88 acres, more or less, on property generally located at 7601 Pine Lake Road. Staff recommendation is for approval.
Move approval.
Second,
Thank
Core.
you. Discussion?
I'll go first. I think, I'm glad to see this come back before us with a much more appropriate plan for this little area. I'm fine with changing it to R3 and for annexing it, and I think this will work out nicely here.
Others? I'll just say I'm going to support the motion. I think this is a good usage of this property. I applaud the developer for finding something that makes sense in this location. So Jerry, please call the vote.
Core,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Sunderman,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Shear,
Yes.
Hove.
Yes.
Motion carried, 6-0. Next item is item 5.1B, change of zone number 16014 from AGR Agricultural Residential District to R3 Residential District for a residential healthcare facility on property generally located at 7601 Pine Lake Road. Staff recommendation is for approval.
Move approval.
Second.
That was Weber.
Weber and Harris.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to say anything? I'll just say, repeat what I said before. I think this is a good project for this location. Jerry, please call the vote.
Core,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Sunderman,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Shear,
Yes.
Hove.
Yes.
Motion carried, 6-0. Item 5.1C, a special permit number 16018 to allow a residential healthcare facility on property generally located at 7601 Pine Lake Road. Staff recommendation is for conditional approval.
Entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
I just want to say, I wanted to thank the developer for meeting with the neighbors so many times and incorporating some of their suggestions. That's very much appreciated.
And I
Sure.
was going to comment on the grass roadway. What a nice way to get that second entrance and emergency exit or entrance in there without putting a lot of concrete in and softening the looks.
I need to clarify who seconded the
I did.
motion. Okay, Sunderman?
Yep.
Okay.
Jerry, please call the vote.
Core,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Sunderman,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Shear,
Yes.
Hove.
Yes.
Motion carried, 6-0.
At this time, anyone wishing to speak on an item not on the agenda may do so. We're adjourned.